Hello, welcome to an evening with Mrs. Brown. I'm currently drinking tea and hoping my voice can make it through, but I want to record some information for you from Unit 10, so here we go. All right, so I want to start with a definition of personality. Personality is an individual's characteristic pattern of thinking, feeling, and acting. So we have some main players in psychology that have studied personality, but really the original and the one we want to start with is Sigmund Freud. So Sigmund Freud, we've talked about several times this year, but he was the founder of psychoanalytic psychology. And this branch became the basis of psychodynamic psychology, which is kind of an offshoot of psychoanalytic psychology. So psychodynamic psychology simply puts less emphasis on the childhood and childhood trauma, but still recognizes the unconscious and unconscious desires. So if you see psychodynamic, that is an offshoot of psychoanalytic. So Freud and the psychoanalytic school of psychology, they look for unconscious drives and unconscious desires, things that we might not know that we want or that we might be suppressing because it's not appropriate to show to the world, and that might be influencing our behavior. And this can be a distinct part of our personality according to the psychoanalytic field. So you guys did or are going to do the Ed puzzle on Freud's iceberg theory, but basically the idea is just like an iceberg, only a small portion of the iceberg is showing on the surface, where the reality is the large part of the iceberg is underneath the water. So Freud said that our personality is like this. We only have this small part of our conscious mind, where our unconscious mind or our subconscious even is kind of hidden from the world. And we don't even always recognize that stuff, but it is influencing us and what we do show to the world. So he talked about the id, the ego, and the superego. So the ego is really what we show to the world. This is the mediator. This is the one that makes peace and kind of finds this compromise between the id and the superego. The superego is the ideal. It's what should the most perfect version be, and it is judgmental of the id. And the id is kind of our basic primary drives, things that are pleasure principle, that seeks immediate gratification and isn't necessarily regulated. So the ego has to make peace between the devil, the id, and the angel, the superego, to present some sort of socially acceptable version in our conscious mind that we can present to the world. Hey girl, I may have a big ego, but you've only seen the tip of the iceberg. There you go. So this is like the typical cartoon that you'll see of Freud's iceberg theory. The ego is that part that we're showing. And then we have the superego on one shoulder, the angel, and the drives, the id, on the other shoulder. So Freud said that basically when things are too painful in our life to deal with, one thing that we will do is use defense mechanisms to protect ourselves, to protect us from having to feel the uncomfortable feelings or, things that we cannot deal with psychologically. And so he came up with these different defense mechanisms that we kind of may unconsciously use to help us get through stress or trauma or unpleasant things that happen to us in our lives. Okay, so the first one is denial. So you just completely reject what's actually happening. You may not even allow yourself to deal with what's happening or acknowledge what's happening because you are in complete denial of this. So a lot of people who have a drug problem may say to themselves, I don't have a drug problem, because they can't admit to that. They're not ready to change. They're not ready to cope. So they just are in denial about it because they're not ready to face the fact that they actually do have a problem. Repression. So this is when a memory is so painful for us when we experienced it that we literally, sometimes it's called like motivated forgetting, because we simply erase it from consciousness in order to protect ourselves. So if something bad happened to you, you may not even remember that because you're repressing it because you can't deal with that. So some people may say when they experience a trauma, I don't even remember what was happening. I don't recall this particular event. So this is different from like dissociative amnesia or a different psychological disorder. This is actually a defense mechanism where from your conscious recollection, you can't really remember that, but this can be uncovered through psychoanalysis. So this is a big difference, is that psychoanalytic psychologists think that repression can kind of be reversed, that you can uncover these hidden memories from your mind if you go through that treatment and you go through that therapy to deal with that. So that's something that's kind of interesting. Reaction formation. So you take something that's uncomfortable and change it into its opposite. So this happens, I always joke, like the little boys that chase the little girls at recess and drive them crazy and like make fun of them. They're not bullying them. They actually like them. This is like 4th grade drama. They actually like them, but the way that they show that is by terrorizing them, right? So they like almost, they can't deal with the fact that oh my gosh, cooties, I like a girl. So they terrorize them. On a more serious note, something unfortunately that could happen with this is, you are extremely racist, or you have a problem with something, so then you compensate with reaction formation, and so you go the complete opposite direction to try to not deal with the fact that you're struggling with racism, or you're struggling with something that's socially unacceptable. So we do see sometimes people who are completely over the top in one direction, and you're like, why are you so over the top? It could be an example of reaction formation because they cannot deal with the reality of the uncomfortable feeling, so they change it into something else. So an example that I've seen in the past is someone who is extremely homophobic, right? And then it comes out later on that they themselves are gay. And so when we look at why they were so homophobic and they were so far in the opposite direction in terms of what they were presenting to the world, it could be an example of reaction formation because they were trying to not deal with their own feelings of hey, maybe I'm gay, because they felt that would not be accepted, which is sad for them, but that is something that we see. So we can apply this to lots of different scenarios in life. Mm-hmm. Okay, projection. When you say that somebody else is thinking or feeling what you're actually feeling. So a lot of this happens with relationships, like, are you cheating on me? Are you sure you're not cheating on me? And them saying like the other person in the relationship is doing something and accusing them, but really they're the ones that are cheating, or, why are you so jealous all the time, when really they're the ones that are jealous, or why do you keep like judging me, when really they're the ones that are judging. So projection is just kind of like, think of like a projector, right? Like it's showing the image on the wall. It's showing the image on something else. So it's taking your feelings and putting them on somebody else, like putting words in someone's mouth. when in reality, it's you that's feeling that way. You may not always know, right? Like you may not realize you're the one that's jealous or you're the one that's judging. So this may be like, unconsciously this is happening. You don't even know that you're the one. Or, it could be how you're dealing with the discomfort and that, that struggle of you doing something or feeling something that is not okay. Like if you have cheated and you feel guilty about that, then the way that you deal with that might be through projection. So that's something to watch for. If someone ever comes at you really hard and you're like, whoa, like where is this coming from? You may want to stop and examine, is it possible that this is actually how they're feeling? Because this is pretty common. Displacement. So this is just redirecting your feelings of frustration, anger, sadness, whatever the uncomfortable emotion is, onto some other target that is not responsible for that emotion because it's a safer or more acceptable target. So like I've seen freshmen before that have like been upset about something and they'll like slam a book down. Were they mad at the book? No. Were they mad at their friend who just like said something mean to them? Yes. So the displacement was the anger redirected to the book. Or like if you've ever seen someone, one time I saw this guy punch a wall. Like clearly he's not mad at the wall. Like he's displacing his anger and his frustration for somebody else onto the wall. This unfortunately also happens with safe people in your life. So sometimes like if you've had a bad day, you may take it out on your spouse, or you may take it out on your parents, or whoever, or maybe your parents might sometimes say something to you, kind of snap at you, and you're like, where did this come from? It could be, not intentional, but the fact that like they're dealing with something else and you're just kind of a comfortable and safe person that they can let that feeling out on. And so it's not fair, but it is kind of sometimes what happens. Yeah. Oh, look, here's the dude who punches a wall. Okay. Sublimation. So you may redirect feelings into a socially productive activity. So for example, you've had a bad day at the office. What you do is you come into your boxing match really supercharged, and you take all of that frustration and aggression and you take it out in the boxing match. So it's not acceptable to be aggressive at work, but it is acceptable and even valued to be aggressive in the boxing ring, right? So according to Freud, this is the most acceptable, socially acceptable defense mechanism. Another thing with aggression too, like some people are just naturally more aggressive, especially men, because of added testosterone and modeling and whatever. So sometimes people who are like naturally aggressive will sublimate that aggression into something that is like a good outlet. So they might become like a cop or like a pro athlete or something where that aggression is acceptable. Rationalization though is where you literally like find a way to logically convince yourself and other people that something illogical makes sense or like is the right thing to do. So you are coming up with a justification for doing something or feeling something that is maybe not socially acceptable. So like if a patient dies during a surgery, the surgeon may try to rationalize that by saying, oh, if I tell the family about the error, it's just going to make them feel worse. I should just not say anything, or it was the patient's fault if they hadn't waited so long, or like, whatever. So they made a mistake because they can't deal with that mistake in a logical way, or, the feelings are just too overwhelming and they have to deny those in order to survive, right? Psychologically, they have to justify what has happened. And people do this all the time, right? Like I've seen people like who never do any work. They never do their homework. They don't study. They sit around. They never ask for help. They never come in. They just like literally are like passive, or maybe they don't even come to class. And clearly they're not doing well in a class. And they'll say, oh, well, it's my teacher's fault. Like they don't know how to teach, or, you know, they're hopefully not me, but like they'll complain about other teachers to me. They're like, they don't know how to teach, or, you know, they don't care, or they just, all they do is this, or all they do is that. And I'm like, you're trying to rationalize the fact that you have a bad grade without dealing with the obvious problem here, which is you are not doing any work and you are not trying, or you are trying and it's not good enough. And so you can't deal with that. And so you're trying to rationalize like your bad grade. And it doesn't make any sense logically to outside people, but to you at that time, that's what you're telling yourself in order to make yourself feel better about the situation. So you got to check yourself and check people that are close to you when they start complaining about things, or, you know, you start hearing them kind of saying things that don't really make sense. They may be literally rationalizing something to themselves. Regression. This is a hilarious one. When people revert to immature behavior to deal with their feelings. So like if a grown woman were to throw a temper tantrum, right, and like scream and cry and like, or push someone, or like stomp their feet and storm out, or, you know, slam stuff around, they're acting like my 3-year-old would act, but they're like a grown-up person, or like even someone your age acting like that. Or if you've ever just seen someone get like really mad and like storm off, or like be really dramatic. This is unfortunately one of the ways that we deal with stress, is we do revert back to this immature, or like name calling, right? Oh my gosh, she's such a B word, or, you know, I said poopy head because I was trying not to use bad language, but like, oh man, like I can't believe I didn't get that promotion. Like that guy's such a jerk. And you just like name call for no reason. Like the guy might not actually even be a jerk, and you may know that, but you can't deal with the fact that you didn't get the promotion. And instead of logically thinking about why, you just regress. So, you know, crying, whining, temper tantrums, all of that. So yeah. All right, so I do have that defense mechanisms rap on YouTube. It's silly. It's just like a little, I don't know. You can roll your eyes at it and it'll be funny, but you can watch that if you want to. All right, so I'm gonna wrap this up here. So what we've talked about in this video, we've done a little intro to Freud. We did Freud's iceberg theory, and we did the Freudian defense mechanism. So I'm going to do a separate video to talk about the psychosexual stages of Freud's development and some of the other things from personality.